Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to dive into another fascinating corner of language?
Absolutely. Always thrilled to be here.
Today we're tackling something pretty fundamental in Italian, and I know it trips up a lot of learners. Gender and number agreement.
Oh, for sure. It's one of those things that makes Italian, well, Italian, but also it can be a bit of a headache when you're first starting out.
Exactly. So you're using Pronunciator to learn Italian, which is fantastic, by the way, but then you bump into this wall of like, wait, why is the changing all the time?
Right. Like in English, the is just the, but in Italian, it decides to have a party depending on what noun it's hanging out with.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. For our listeners who are just dipping their toes into the Italian language pool, can you give us the lowdown on what gender and number agreement actually means?
Totally. So every noun in Italian, and I mean every single one, has a gender. It's either masculine or feminine. Think of it like each noun has a little invisible tag that says boy or girl,
Even objects.
especially objects. Table, feminine. Book, masculine. Why? Don't ask me, that's just how they roll in Italian.
Okay, so the nouns have genders, but where does this whole agreement thing come into play?
So that's where the fun begins. The articles like the or a and the adjectives you use have to match the gender and number of the noun they're describing.
Hold on. We need an example. This is starting to sound complicated.
All right. Let's take cat, which is gatto in Italian. Now, gatto is masculine, right? So if you want to say the cat, you'd say il gatto. But if you're talking about a female cat, you'd say la gatta. See how the article changes from il to la?
Ah, I see. So it's not just the noun itself. It's like everything around it has to agree on what gender it is.
You got it. And it goes even further with adjectives. Beautiful is bello for a male cat, but bella for a female cat. Everything has to be in sync.
Wow, it's like a big grammatical dance party. No wonder this trips people up.
I know, right? But here's the thing. Once you get used to it, it becomes second nature. And honestly, it makes the language so much more expressive. You can convey so much nuance just by how you change the articles and adjectives.
I can see that. So for our pronunciator users out there, any tips on how to actually get a grip on this? Because it sounds like it's pretty crucial.
Absolutely. It's essential for really mastering Italian, that's for sure. First off, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're learning. It's okay to mess up. Practice, practice, practice. Pronunciator is fantastic for this.
And I'd imagine paying attention to those patterns you mentioned earlier helps too, right? Like O usually being masculine and A being feminine.
Exactly. Those patterns are your friends. Now, there are some curveballs, some exceptions to the rules, but as you encounter more and more Italian, you start to pick up on those too.
It's like cracking a code, really. You see the patterns, you figure out the exceptions, and suddenly you're speaking Italian like a pro, or at least on your way to becoming one.
Right. And think about this. English doesn't have grammatical gender for nouns in the same way. So, learning Italian, it can actually change how you see language itself, maybe even how you think about the world around you.
That's a pretty cool bonus, right? You learn a language, and you unlock a new way of looking at things.
Exactly. It stretches your brain a little bit, in a good way.
So to wrap things up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are braving the wild world of Italian gender and number agreement?
Embrace the challenge. It's part of what makes Italian such a beautiful and rewarding language to learn.
I love that. All right, everyone. Until next time, happy language learning.